every 5th of February is World Read Aloud Day. World Read Aloud Day motivates children, teens, and adults to celebrate the power of words. It is a global literacy movement that takes action to show the world that the right to read and write belongs to all people.
Very well said, Sheyi. World Read Aloud Day is simply asking everyone to celebrate today by grabbing a book, finding an audience, and reading out aloud.
Well, you have a book. Before we bring in our guest to the studio, Rufai, you want to take something from that book?
So I've grabbed the book. I've got an audience here in the studio. The book is The Shadow of the Unseen by Lillian Akwankwa, chapter 8. And it goes, he sighted her from the rear mirror, walking down to meet him in the car. He liked the blue dress and the flat gold baby shoes she wore. That was one thing he liked so much about her. She was always modestly dressed. He unlocked as she tapped at the door. He heaved into the front passenger seat after opening the door. He spread his arm wide and she melted into his warm embrace, placing her head on his chest as she perceived his cologne.
Interesting. Before I read the entire book, well, let's bring in our guest now. He joins us, I'm being told before then, but let me introduce him. Is Umar Farouk Bello, the Northern Region Program Coordinator of Universal Learning Solutions Initiative. But before we get started, like I said, let's take a listen to this comment by Dr. Hamed Boboyi, Executive Secretary of the Universal Basic Education Board.
The key issue that has been worrying us is the issue of learning. You can come to school, you can have access, you can build the infrastructure, but if no learning takes place, we are not going to make any progress, isn't it, in this country. I take education, and particularly basic education, as the foundation that can sustain the future of Nigeria. There is that imperative that if Nigeria would want to move forward, if Africa, isn't it, would want to move forward, find its rightful place in the Committee of Nations, it must pay serious attention to basic education.
This is a story of a reading revolution. The story of how a small project starting in 6 schools in rural Nigeria became the largest English literacy project in Africa, helping over 3.5 million children to read and write. This is a story of hope. Despite the efforts of the Nigerian government and international development partners, Nigeria's education system is still in crisis.
Well, Mr. Umar Farouk Bello joins us now from our Abuja studios. He's the Northern Region Program Coordinator of the Universal Learning Basic, if I got that right, it's the Universal Learning Solutions Initiative. Thank you so much, Mr. Farouk, for joining us this morning. And let me begin by asking you, on a day like this,
thank you.
How important is this day, and what exactly does it seek to, celebrate, really?
Right, yeah, very good. The World Read Aloud Day, I think, started from the year 2010. And of course, from the year 2010. And in fact, it started by just a small organization, Lit World. And it escalated to all over the world because of the idea and the concept that really fits into the generality of the world. Because only when you read aloud, people will understand how proficient you are. And of course, when you read aloud, you develop more confidence in what you read. And of course, maybe by reading aloud, people will hear and correct you more. And it's just like a Hausa, proverb that says, "Ba wende san karatun kuluma." Nobody knows the reading of the deaf. If the deaf is reading, he's just flying over papers, you wouldn't know what is being read, and you can never see how you can correct him. But if people read aloud, they develop their proficiency in reading, they develop confidence, and they get corrected from what they have read. And because the beauty of it is that you just have to learn to read before you read to learn. So in whatever book you read, is it biology, chemistry, physics, name them. You cannot read them without knowing how to read and write. So basically, that is what it's all about. And it's celebrated all over the world, Nigeria inclusive. If you go around our states, you see, in all the suburbs or perhaps in some primary schools, especially early grade, level children are celebrating it and are reading, from the decodable readers we have given them. And in its own contribution, the Universal Learning Solutions has really, given donations of, jolly readers in form of application, because it is understood that children find it difficult, maybe our children nowadays prefer to read on the electronic media more than from the text. So in essence, we try to capture them, even though we have produced the texts, in hard copies, we are also reaching out to them in the media, in the technology. For instance, we have the app, the Jolly Readers app, we have the decodable readers, and in series. And these applications are installed in all, in the Android phones of all our teachers, parents, and it can be downloaded free from the Google Play Store. It is there in the Google Play Store for any parent to download for his children to start to teach him to read. So nobody can really underrate the importance of reading.
That's very well said.
In fact, the Prophet of Islam, there's a first revelation that came to him, that is read.
Okay,
read.
That's very well said, Umar Farouk Bello.
Nobody can undermine that, yeah.
Right, that's very well said, Umar Farouk Bello. And I'm really excited. It was a joy for me reading live on the television this morning. It brought so much joy to me. But I'm concerned about the 12 million pupils that are out of school that can't read out loud. That's my concern. How do we get them reading? 12 million pupils out of school that can't read out loud.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, and government is not relenting in this. Other development partners are also not relenting in this. There are a series of interventions coming up, from government, from development partners. I will tell you, for instance, in our own case, we have been partnering with the UBEC, particularly UBEC. Ever since we started, we have been partnering with UBEC. Then Global Partnership in Education and Nigeria, NIPEP, Nigeria Partnership in Education. Of course, there is now a new program that came up in the name of BESDA, and that says, pay for results. All these are interventions intended to reach out to as many children as possible. And currently, as I'm speaking to you now, I think by tomorrow, UBEC has organized a meeting of something that could really take care of that. That is National Open School System. And the meeting is taking place in Kaduna tomorrow. It's starting in Kaduna tomorrow. I believe UBEC will tell you more about this. I believe in that meeting there will be meeting of center managers of the National Open Schools, National Open School System, and then of course the curriculum developers. A curriculum will be developed for these kind of children that we can reach them out, even though, in spite of the fact that government is making an effort in form of BESDA, to bring the children back, because there is a reward for bringing children in. If the more number of children you bring to school, you get a reward. So in that regard, I think there are a lot of combination of efforts trying to reach out to as many of these children as possible. Of course, and I appreciate the measures taken by some of the states, especially banning of hawking, street trading. Recently, I think I read in Kaduna, the governor has ordered the arrest of any child that was caught roaming the street, and once he's arrested, he's to be taken to school. So I think there are so many measures. But my cue, the population is enormous, and the challenges are really enormous, ranging from infrastructure to mobilization to even the manpower, the capacity of the management, and so many other things. And all these things have to be addressed and properly addressed too.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bello. For many educators around the world, this event is an opportunity to engage students, especially in improving their vocabulary, listening comprehension, and cognitive development. Now, can we talk about the level of engagement around the nation in public and private sectors? I'm picking up my 5-year-old niece today. If I talk to her, would she tell me that today she read out loud in her school?
Yeah, if she really participated in the program, that is the aim, and whoever is in school is now asked to read whatever text is available to him. He should read it aloud. And you can see, in fact, that is why we came out with this Jolly Phonics methodology. And in Jolly Phonics methodology, there are 8 steps, and all these 8 steps carry the child along, because they are full of fun for the children. Children interact with the teacher, and more or less the lesson is child-centered. So children even regret missing the Jolly Phonics lesson in almost our schools. And the content is that we teach the children initially the 42 English letter sounds. And while teaching them, we teach them to blend them, put them together to form words. For instance, if you start teaching a child the sound s, and he goes to learn ah, and then t. Now, by the time you ask him to blend, he will say sat. He can say sat. And it goes on like that with all the other sounds. Before you knew it, within perhaps 6 weeks, a child is able to read with fluency and with confidence. So, in essence, if the children are following our methodology, and if the teachers are really using the methodology, we try to teach the children at least the 5 basic skills in reading. And when the children develop these skills, they can read any text.
Interesting.
So,
I feel like I'm in class all over again
kind of
when I was in primary school. But Mr. Umar Farouk Bello, stay with us. We'll go on a quick break. I'll be right back to discuss some more. Welcome back to the Morning Show here on the Rise News. And we still have Umar Farouk Bello, the Northern Region Program Coordinator of Universal Learning Solutions Initiative. He joins us from our Abuja studios. Thank you so much, Mr. Farouk, for staying with us. Earlier, before the break, you had mentioned how digital revolution has affected reading culture in Nigeria. Once we had a governor in Osun State, Governor Umar Farouk Bello, who revolutionized education. He had the Okpoimo, which is simply the tablet of knowledge. But in the absence of that, because when you look around, not everybody seems to have emulated that. And how many children really can access telephones to read? I'm talking about the accessibility and affordability of the books, because you cannot talk about reading aloud without having the books. How are we faring in that aspect? And that brings to the question, libraries, public libraries. What's your take?
Yeah, surely that is the greatest thing, the greatest deficit, and I think, I don't know which one comes first. Is it the egg or the hen? Is it the writing culture or the reading culture that has first started declining before the other? So, but what is important is that really there is really a serious challenge in our ability to even write enough. And of course, even when you write, how many people read? And so the issue is that, in fact, maybe in our own case, I think for these decodable readers I was telling you about that are on our on Google Store, we have given as free donation and Google Store. We have not only it's not only restricted to that. We also donated thousands of copies of this series, about 80,000 per each state. So all the states of the federation, we intervene. We do, we train teachers. We make sure that by a certain level, when the children are able to join the words, the sounds to form words, then we give them the books, and then they use them. I'm only telling you about the use of the application, maybe to capture those children and those parents that maybe, to go with the tide, sort of, to follow them, where they are, to provide it. But actually, it is really sad that, we have lost our reading culture. We have also, of course, even we have lost our writing culture.
Okay.
And perhaps it has to do with maybe some certain undercurrents.
All right. I mean, when you talked about losing our writing culture, I remember great writers like Sir Peter Quincy's of this world. That's one of the wonderful writers that we'll normally read, and some other great books like Malak Issa's Passport and the like. But let's go straight to it. I'll ask two questions. Have we not always passed our deadline? As at 2010, I remember we had a Vision 2010, to have a sizable level of literacy in the country. But that's not the case in Nigeria as we speak. And also, part of the children that are reading, it's good you're distributing books all around. I want the education, and I want Almajiri children to read out loud. What are we doing as regards to that?
Yeah. You see, like I told you, you have several, series of interventions, in coming in, like even the national open schooling system that is going to kick off very soon, and a meeting. I think delegates have even started arriving in Kaduna today. I think there's going to be that meeting there, and it's being organized by UBEC. That will be a way of maybe reaching out to those children. And there's, of course, another thing of, the need for legislation in the states. Of course, even if there is legislation, it needs to be enforced to make sure that, yes, the Almajiri, the Almajiri have a way of being reached out. You either take them to school, and perhaps some of them are Almajiris because of poverty. Some are Almajiris because of some kind of cultural, negative cultural belief that some parents, even if they are rich, they would prefer to take their children to go somewhere to become celebrated scholars, because that's the interpretation. That's the exact interpretation of Almajiri. Almajiri means a celebrated scholar. If you in Arabic, it means a celebrated scholar, not a beggar. Almajiri is not a beggar in the real context of the word. So Almajiri is a celebrated scholar, and that's how the word came up. But actually, in our own case, I think, in the Nigerian case, it's just unfortunate, but I believe there are so many interventions reaching out to them in form of a program called IQE, Integrated Quranic Education, and they are being reached out to, and a lot of programs, and I tell you, maybe in due course, and the statistics you are giving, maybe the decline and the Vision 2010, and of course, even all other predicaments. You envisage an economy such as this coming up, maybe sustaining you, but eventually it becomes a mirage when you come to implement. So many challenges are surrounding the education sector, and of course, but with the massive interventions that are coming into education and the manner of the UBEC we have today, and our own kind of collaboration with them, I believe we will make sure that we reach out to somewhere. Because as I'm telling you now, we have trained over 100,000 teachers in Nigeria, 100,000 teachers across the country. And if you go by a ratio of one teacher to perhaps 50 pupils, it means we have reached out to 5 million children. So maybe as we go on, we can be reaching out, for all the other things. And there are plans by some other state governments to come out with programs that can reach out to the so-called Almajiris. But I tell you, Almajiri is different from a beggar. A beggar, I would better call a beggar. But Almajiri means celebrated scholar. And we have them, and, and that's exactly what it is.
Thank you for correcting that notion. Now, Mr. Bello, I want us to talk about the books in particular. Now, You've spoken about curriculum development. Now, is there anything being done to combine these books being read aloud with Nigeria's history? Because it has been seen in the past that our history is most times ignored. If we're focusing on educating these students, are any of these books Nigerian history books? And if not, what's being done to make sure that they become those books?
Yeah, I really thank you very much for that. And you've just asked the right question to the right person, because I'm a student of history. Of course, I have seen how the neglect had been. And I have seen how the neglect of history had really put a lot of problem to the country, has caused so many chaos, misconceptions, distrust, acrimony, and so many things. Intolerance, even, in many ways, social, economic, religious, all these are as a result of ignorance of history. And because of, at one time, we were so ambitious that we wanted to get to the moon. We wanted to be industrialized. We want to get technology. We want to go to science. We want to get this, at the same time, ignoring history. In fact, when history is the father of all these technologies, the father of science, because it's only when you understand what happened yesterday, then you can understand. If you know what happens yesterday, you can be able to interpret what is happening today, and then perhaps you can reconstruct the future. Unfortunately, we have ignored history, and it's out of our syllabus. But with the coming of this government, and I saw it was part of its campaign manifesto, right from maybe even before it won election. APC's manifesto was, teaching of history was on top of the manifesto. But I don't seem to see any serious effort put towards getting this being done. But actually, we are trying. If you look at most of our books, we're aligning them to the history, and of course, trying to ensure there is some unity of purpose. Okay. For instance, you will see in one of the books, Obi and Adam, Nafisa, and what have
Umar Farouk Bello. I know you have a lot to say. Thank you so much. But anywhere you are around the globe today, pick a book and read out loud. And that brings us to the end of the show today. I'm Adesoa Omorwan.
I'm Rafai Hosseini.
And I'm Shaiton Atigari. Thank you so much for watching. You can also follow us on all the social media handles showing now on the screen. This is a